these are some of the basic assumptions of IFS. First, we're all multiple personalities. There's nobody in this room who's not a multiple personality. I don't mean you all have multiple personality disorder. But even that, what's now called DID, is just one end of a spectrum of what we all are. That it's the nature of the mind to be subdivided, that we have all these parts for good reason. They contain valuable qualities and talents and resources for us. And that one mind couldn't do everything we have to do simultaneously. Because of the things that happen to us in our lives, these parts are forced out of their naturally valuable states, and they become stuck in roles that they don't even like, but feel like are necessary to keep you alive. It's possible for parts to unburden, to release these emotions and beliefs. And when they do, they immediately transform into their naturally valuable states. Somebody has a panic attack in the middle of my session. Most people would start to try and ground them and get them back, right? I just say, oh, it's so great to have you here. I'm so glad you're here. You're really welcome here. I get that you're really scared. You're stuck somewhere that something happened. It really scared the hell out of you. We're going to help you. Part starts to calm down. It'll be easier to help you if you separate a little bit from her right now, so she can help you too. This is a model of transformation. We're actually going to these parts, and it turns out if you go to them in this loving way, you witness their stories, you help them out of where they're stuck in the past, they will unload the emotions and beliefs that I call the burdens they carry that drive their extremes, and they will transform into their naturally valuable states, and they will do it very quickly. So this is a model of transformation. It's not a model of learning to live with what you've already got in a better way. It's about getting into this place where you feel huge compassion, and from that place of compassion, relating to these parts in a way that actually makes them feel cared about. Just getting these parts to step back, spontaneously, people would enter this other state. And when I would ask about that, now what part of you is that? Because that seems to be useful. Because when they would get into that state, the part that they were working with would react well, wouldn't feel threatened, and would respond in a way that would allow for the dialogue to continue. So I would say, now what part of you is that? And they would say, you know, that's not really a part like these others. That's more of who I am. That's more myself. So that we call the self with the capital S. That place, it's hard to describe, find a word, essence in us. That is in everybody. And it is just beneath the surface of these parts. And in addition, can be accessed much more quickly than you ever thought, if you can convince certain parts to open space for it. This has become the centerpiece of the model, this idea of this self and self-leadership and how to achieve that both internally and externally. That, for me, is the big contribution of IFS. The parts of you that got hurt most tend to be the parts of you that are most sensitive, that also tend to be the parts of you that are the most creative and playful and spontaneous and trusting and open and loving and so on. And in the process of getting hurt, they now don't seem so much fun, because they're like a child who got hurt and is stuck in that hurt place. And if you get close to them now, they pull you into it, or they overwhelm you with those feelings, and you don't want to feel that again. We both try ourselves to exile all that stuff, and everybody around us encourages us to exile it. But it turns out, in the process of doing that, you're locking away your juice. You're locking away the most precious parts of you often. So to keep them locked up, we have all these parts who are trying to manage our lives so that nothing similar happens again. Or so we don't get too close to anybody, or we don't let anybody get too distant from us, or we look perfect, or we perform at a really high level, or so on and so on. They're just desperately trying to keep us from getting triggered, from having those parts explode, those exiles explode with all their flames of emotion, because if they ever do, it'll consume us. So these we call the managers. So managers are the parts of us that we know most, that we identify with the most, that we think of as ourselves. Often those self-like parts are managers. They're often the critics. They're criticizing us in an effort to get us to behave. Or they're trying to make you feel bad enough that you never take another risk. And that's going to keep you from getting hurt. What they have in common is a desire to preempt anything that might trigger the exiles and to control inner and external environments. Now, despite those defenses, the world has a way of still triggering your exiles. And when that happens, as I'm saying, it's a big emergency. It's like the worst possible thing. You're going to die if this continues, if you keep feeling this. So there's another set of parts whose job it is to deal with that emergency and do it right now, to get you out of that state somehow right now. Damn the torpedoes. Don't care about the collateral damage to your relationships, to your body. Whatever it takes, I'm going to get you out. I'm going to get you higher than those flames. Or I'm going to get you out of your body and let the flames burn themselves out. So we call these parts firefighters, because they're trying to fight the fire of the exile's emotion. You'll find there are polarizations among all kinds of parts. And a frequent polarization is between the managers who are trying to control everything and keep everybody pleased around you and keep everything under control, and the firefighters that take you out of control and piss off everybody in your life. And so some of the shaming is often these parts trying to contain these parts, both of whom are trying to deal with these parts. We go to the protectors to hear their story of why they're doing what they're doing, and once you get that information, to appreciate them and honor them for their service. And then you ask about what they protect. In doing that, they'll often tell you about these exiles, and then you ask and negotiate for permission to go to those exiles. I'll say, okay, focus on this part of you that's trying to protect. Just focus on this part of you that I think is a protector, like the critic or some other part like that. Okay. Ask what it wants you to know about itself. Well, it's telling me that I'm worthless. Okay, ask why it's saying that. It's because I am. Okay. What's it afraid would happen if it didn't constantly tell you that? It's saying I would be hurt. Okay. So it's trying to protect you from being hurt. Ask if that's right. It says yes. Okay, could you show it some appreciation for trying to help you this way, to not be hurt, even though it's this terrible critic? How's it reacting to that appreciation? Okay. Ask it, if we could go to the parts that it protects, that have been hurt in the past, and heal them, would it have to keep doing this? What do you think the answer to that question is? 80% of the time, no, but I don't think you can do that. If we could do it, though, would you like that? Yes, I would. And what would you like to do if we could do that? I would like to help her feel better. Some version of that. The parts begin to get along with each other and work together And so that as that happens, people feel more unitary. You have clients feel like, I feel more like one person now. They're more integrated. And not because the parts have disappeared, but because now they all get along. So if we were to walk outside and you saw a flock of birds in the sky, it would look like one organism. But I could take a bird out of that flock and have it walk around and it would have autonomy. The bird didn't disappear. That's what we're shooting for with this inner world. That kind of harmony, that kind of unity without the elimination of autonomy.